How many times and where should you spray your cologne? Number of sprays really depends on how well the fragrance performs. My average is anywhere from 8 to a maximum of 10 for average performing fragrances. For something below average, I spray it around 12 to 14 times. Something like this is an average performing fragrance. So for Acqua di Gio Profondo, I'd spray it on about 8 to 10 times. Where I'd spray the fragrance is 1, 2, so 2 behind each ear, and I'd spray it on my pulse points on my neck, 3, 4. I'd also like to spray it on my forearm, 5, 6 on each forearm, and then 1 on top of the hands, 7, 8, and underneath the shirt, 9. So generally I'd like to stick there. Otherwise I could add 1 more for the top range of my average performing fragrances, makes it 10 on the top of the hat or behind the neck. So that's 10 sprays for an average performing fragrance, and an average performing fragrance is anything that gives me more than 5 hours. So 5 to 8 hours for me personally is an average performing fragrance. But more importantly than performance longevity is going to be sillage. So if something doesn't last for more than about 4 hours, but it's extremely loud, you also have to keep that into consideration in terms of how much you spray it. So although it doesn't last more than 4 hours, but it's a screamer, you should spray it a lot less than you would just because it doesn't last long. The next realm of fragrances is going to be louder performing fragrances. Something like Sauvage Elixir or Cidra's Nero. Sexy date night fragrance, by the way, beast mode performer. But Sauvage Elixir is something that I would deem beast mode. So for something like this, I'd spray it around 4 to 6 times, and when I'm feeling edgy or testy, 7 to 8 times. But my general rule of thumb for beastly performing fragrances is 4 to 6 sprays. We're gonna do 1, 2, 1 behind each of the ears. Forearms, I do like to sniff my forearms throughout the entirety of the day, and when you walk around, you're gonna give wafts of your fragrance everywhere you walk. So 3, 4, and then the top of the hand. Though a lot of people like to put it on their wrist because of the pulse point. There are plenty of veins on the top of your hand which can warm up the fragrance as well. But the top of the hands is much more enjoyable for me. I like to get sniffs and wafts of my fragrance throughout the entirety of the wear. Check the time a lot, and I like to sniff my hand. So I'd do 5, and then the last one I'll do right underneath the shirt. This way I can get the chest, so if I take my shirt off later on and she's laying her head on my chest, she can smell it, but it's also on my shirt as well. If I'm feeling extra testy and I want to go for 7, I'm going to spray it on the other top of the hand. You'll notice that I didn't really spray it on my neck, and it really depends on whether or not you're going on a date. So if I was going on a date, I'll keep it behind the ears. If I wasn't going on a date, I'd probably put it on my pulse points instead of behind the ears. Thing is, if she decides to turn into a vampire and suck on your neck to get some blood, you're screwed, because she's going to have a mouthful of disgusting chemicals and fragrance oils, and you don't want that. So if you're not going on a date, then you can easily substitute behind the neck or behind the ears for the neck, the pulse points. Lastly, weaker performing fragrances. Something like this doesn't give you more than about 5 hours. It's inoffensive, it's easy, it's not spicy. You're going to want to spray this on a minimum of 10 sprays, maybe even 12 to 14 sprays. It really depends on how well it performs. I would say start off with the lower range and test it from there. So I'm not going on a date. I don't have to worry about vampires sucking on my blood. Where am I going to spray this? This is when I would spray 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 on the carotids, 1 behind the ear, 1 behind the ear. That's about 4 sprays. We're going to do 5, 6, top of the hands, 7, 8, underneath the shirt, 9, on top of the shirt, 10, 11, and really you could stop there, or you can go for 12 and 13. I don't really like to spray fragrance on top of my hair, so I would probably just stick to the 12 if I wasn't wearing the hat. So 12 sprays of this. Lastly, I want to address this because a lot of people think this is weak sauce right here. But honestly, I get decent performance out of about 8 sprays of this. This is a case or a scenario where, although it's a weaker fragrance in terms of how long it lasts, the projection is relatively spicy, so you really can't spray this in that range of something like this, because sillage and scent profile can be offensive despite the fact that it's in the same realm as far as how long they last. So this lasts about 5 hours, this lasts about 5 hours. Keep this at around 8 to 10 sprays maximum. Because of those spices, if you spray it any more than that, it's just gonna come off-putting. You spray it on about 8 times. If you need to reapply 5 to 6 hours later, you reapply with half of that amount of sprays. But that's about it. So if I were going on a date and I were to spray La Nuit de l'Homme, which I think a lot of guys should because this is still really good, I'd spray it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's exactly how I would spray this. I would keep it off of my neck. A couple of other spots that you could do to replace the neck is on the tops of the shoulders. How and where to spray your fragrances.